This video is going to be about how I made this eye piece for this collage I had done for the Makers Creative Collab. So there's a video about that. You can look if you want a bit more information about this. But today I'm going to be focusing on the eye and how I did this image transfer onto this fabric. Now, I wasn't sure what this fabric was. It's after the video explaining this collage was posted, one of the commenters, Deb C, I believe, said she thought this was something called Buckram, which is used to stiffen fabrics like drapery. I researched that and I tend to agree with her. So here's the same size piece that I used, and what the Buckram is, it's some sort of a woven fabric that is then treated with a starch type of thing. So then it's stiff, but you can actually mold it. So it's also used in hat making. So what I did to make this little bowl is I used an orange as sort of a template, and I used steam, and I just sort of wrapped it around, held it, and then it takes the shape. So, I mean, this is just a little test piece. Obviously, I am not a hat maker or bowl maker, as you can see. But I just want to mention that if you're looking for stiff fabric, the fabric that I actually used in creating this image transfer. You could do this image transfer, I think, on other fabrics and maybe just back it onto something stiffer. You could use glue to back on something stiffer. But with no further ado, here is how I created this little piece of this collage. So I'm starting off here with a 3 3/4 inch by 3 3/4 inch size of that Buckram. I'm spreading out some PBO blue-green iridescent paint on my 5 by 7 jelly plate. And I'll be using my 4-inch round jelly plate to actually do the image transfer. But first I want to colorize this piece of Buckram first. So I have it on the round jelly plate just to give it a little bit more squishiness to add the stamped piece. I was trying to incorporate nearing needlework theme from the collab onto this plastic canvas. I just threaded in some twine to make this star pattern, and I thought that would be a nice addition to the eye. I wanted just a little bit more in that, you can see I rotated that top section, so I try to push down on there. I don't get a lot more, but it's good enough. I just want it subtle beneath the transfer that we're going to be doing. And then next I'm just ripping around this eye so that I don't have a square border on my transfer. I probably could have skipped this. I could have just wiped away the border. And this is just an eye that I got from a magazine advertisement, and I didn't want that stark white, so here I'm just testing out using the Seth Apter Eyes Ink Spray Honey color on another piece just to see if I liked how that grunched it up, and I did. So I just sprayed the corners, and I used a baby wipe and to just sort of spread it around. I wanted to keep the center fairly light so the eye would really stand out, and I'm just fooling around till I'm happy with how that looks, and then I will let that dry before I try the transfer. And of course I don't want to waste that product, so I use a book page just to pick up the excess, and just making sure that is dry with my heat gun. So now I'm ready to do the transfer. I'm using Mars Black Liquid Text Basics on the 4-inch round jelly plate. And if you've watched my image transfer, magazine image transfer video, there's a bit more information on doing this, but basically you want a fairly thin coat of the base paint. I'm choosing black, but you can choose other colors. And here I'm just rolling off some excess paint so that it's almost see-through. Then I'll place the image down, face down obviously, and the black ink and dark ink on that image is going to resist being picked up by the paper, by the magazine paper. So you'll have a image of the black paint left over, and I quite like that circle left over. I thought that was pretty cool. So here, and you don't put it on for very long. It's sort of trial and error, and I like that eye. I like this little side image here. I'm just going to hold the image over the fabric just to see how it's going to look. Of course, it will be reversed when I actually do the transfer. So I'm just wiping away some of that excess black paint. I want it to look distressed, but not, too distressed. And fingers crossed, I let that dry, and I'm going to use matte medium to do the actual transfer because I want the background of the fabric to show through, so I'm not using a paint, like a colored paint, to do the pickup. And in my previous videos, I've talked about matte medium. Basically, it's kind of like a colorless acrylic paint. Now, there is a little bit of a hard piece, I think, of the matte medium that scratched the image. You'll notice it more a little bit later. And you know, instead of considering it ruined, I decided that it added character to this. You can see those little hatch marks there. That's because there's a little glob of dried up matte medium, like basically glue, that kind of scratched the image a bit. It didn't scratch my plate though, just scratched the image. So I turn that over, press it onto the fabric. I turn the jelly plate over. I give the fabric some more pats and just really pressing that down, ensure it contacts fully. So while I put that aside to dry, I use that circular print to pick up the blue paint I had on that 5x7 plate, and that I used a red, cadmium red, to pick that up. And I like that print a lot. All right, so now I missed the actual reveal, but I let it dry. I pulled off the fabric, and it was a nice transfer. So it turned out my rusted washer was the right size to cover the iris. So I thought that would be pretty cool to sew that on, since the theme of the collab was nearing needlework. And I used rusty pieces that I rusted myself in a bath of hydrogen peroxide, vinegar, and salt. And I didn't show that process in my last video about this collage, but basically I just looked online to find recipes how to do it, and I'll try to link some of those below this video as well, in case you're interested. This beautiful blue thread was actually gifted to me by Teresa Peterman, and this was just the perfect use for it. I was going to put more threads through, but the needle was fairly large, and the holes it made was pretty big, so I couldn't add more than 4 because I didn't want to destroy the integrity of the inner part of the circle. I didn't want it to just become one big hole. So I'm happy with that. And then I take this little rusted, they're picture hangers that you sort of pop into the wall. So those rusted up well. And now I'm using DMC red floss to attach those. And I'm just sewing that on there. So that's basically the finished product. I used a few small pieces of foam tape to attach it to the rest of the collage, and I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. If you want to learn more about that collage, check out my video for the collab. And thanks for watching, and have a great day.